This episode of Bullet Heaven was made with a copy of the game provided by Zerodiv. In episode 193 of Bullet Heaven, we took a look at Saikyo's Gunbird for Nintendo Switch, released by Zerodiv late in 2017. Though it was an earlier Saikyo release, it started featuring new abilities and functions that would become mainstays in Saikyo's future games. Fittingly, Gunbird 2 takes the original's formula to new heights with a host of new features in Zerodiv's latest shooting game release for the Nintendo Switch.
Gunbird 2 for Nintendo Switch was released by Zerodiv on the Nintendo eShop on June 21, 2018. Originally released to arcades on Saikyo SH2 hardware in December 1998. It then saw release to the Sega Dreamcast for NTSC territories in 2000 and for PAL regions in 2001. It would also be released alongside the original Gunbird on PlayStation 2 in Japan and Europe. Gunbird 2 even saw a 2014 Korean release on Android, followed by a worldwide release on both Android and iOS in 2016. How does it compare to the original? Let's take a closer look.
Gunbird 2 for Nintendo Switch plays very similarly to the original Gunbird with a few additions and enhancements that objectively make it a better game. At its core though, Gunbird 2 has a lot of familiar mechanics that have made their way from a number of older Saikyo titles.
Players start off with a selection of 5 distinct characters with which to play the game. Each of these characters have their own fire patterns, bombers, and movement rates. There's a good amount of selection that allows players to experiment and find the character they like the most, and, for the most part, they're all pretty balanced. Though Valpyro is actually pretty OP now that we think of it. Additionally, a hidden 6th character, Ein from Samurai Aces, can be unlocked and used by holding down while selecting the random character icon.
The control in Gunbird 2 is also very similar to the original. 8-way movement is mapped to the left analog stick or directional buttons, rapid shot is mapped to A, charge is mapped to Y, and bomber is mapped to B. Players can obtain enhancements to their main shot that max out after 3 pickups for a total level of 4. As with many other Saikyo games, colliding with an enemy directly will decrease the player's shot power by 1 tier. Many of these pickups are available in each stage, which allows players that die the opportunity to recover their power fairly easily. Extra bombers are also dropped in every stage as well, allowing for liberal use in areas where things get a little too crowded.
Like Striker's 1945-2, Gunbird 2 has a gauge that fills when enemies are struck with player bullets. The higher the gauge, the better the charged special attack will be when utilized. In Gunbird 2 though, rather than a single shot on Y, the player will still have rapid fire until a chargeable amount is accessible in the player's gauge. Certain characters like Valpyro can even use multiple specials if enough energy is available.
This gauge is also used for a new function added to Gunbird 2. A strong melee attack is executed with the X button. This attack requires special energy, but not a whole level of it. Several melee attacks can be made with the energy taken by a level 2 special. However, the player's gauge must be built to at least level 1 in order to use the melee attack. Once again, as with their fire patterns, each character has their own unique melee attack, with different functions and timing, so finding a character with the best of all worlds can take a bit of time, adding to the game's replay.
Gunbird 2 is played over the course of 7 stages and every character has their own story arc. As always, 2-player games result in different arcs, as each player character interacts differently depending who is chosen at game start. However, Gunbird 2 for Nintendo Switch also adds the ability of playing a single-player game with 2-player characters, allowing one player to experience the 2 players' game interactions. If a player dies, the characters chosen will alternate.
Players who finish the game on higher difficulties can also play through Gunbird 2's harder second loop. But it's definitely not an easy time getting there. Gunbird 2's cutesy characters and whimsical gameplay belies its hardcore nature, and it takes serious amounts of skill to take on the game on the normal setting and above. At least the lowest difficulty isn't monkey anymore. No, it's baby.
Thankfully, the game is pretty fun regardless of its emasculating challenge on anything above child, and we've spent quite a bit of time just going through the game over and over with every character just to see how their plot ends up. Especially in handheld mode, Gunbird 2 for Nintendo Switch operates very sharply with regards to its control. With that said, players will definitely want a good wired controller with a solid D-pad and a monitor with a snappy refresh rate to play through the dock. Monitor lag on our Bravia definitely hurt our playthroughs on higher difficulties.
Gunbird 2's scoring is very similar to its direct predecessor, but a few extra features have been implemented to make it one of the more challenging score chasers on the Nintendo Switch.
Obviously, enemy destruction will make up the bulk of a player's score in any given playthrough. Being able to efficiently dispatch as many enemies and surface-based opponents as possible will get the player's score sufficiently up over time. But there are a few things that can really help in enhancing the player's score.
First up, collecting power-ups beyond maximum power will grant the player 4,000 points for each one collected. Especially in later stages, if a player can maintain their fire level, this can add up pretty quickly.
Coins also make a return from the first game, but with two key differences. Firstly, these coins will have variable values depending on their rotation and brilliance, just as in Saikyo's Tengai. At full value, the coin will be faced forward and gleaming white, which will grant the player 2,000 points. There is also a special tone when the coin is collected at maximum value. At their least valuable, they clock in at 200 points, just like all coins were in Gunbird 1.
But it goes even further than that. If a player collects multiple max coins in succession, a chain bonus will be activated, which can see these coins rise to a total of 4,000 points apiece. With the base max value of 2,000 points, a bonus 2,000 is achieved within 4 successive pickups. This can be pretty hard to do, but with practice, players should be able to chain huge amounts of these coins. Of course, if a coin is collected at a rate that isn't maxed out, the chain will be broken and will need to be started again.
Finally, a hidden bonus enemy can sometimes appear in certain areas of the stage. If shot, it will toss out huge green gems that grant the player 1,000 points each. If it can be shot enough, a much more valuable blue gem will be thrown into the playfield. However, if it is not shot at all or enough, it will simply phase out and disappear.
There are additional special bonuses too. Performing a bomber close to enemy shots can result in a nice bomb that multiplies the player's score according to how many bullets are nullified in close proximity. Some characters like Ayn or Marion can even create extra bonus pickups through their bombers, worth 200 points apiece. Especially when there's a ton of bullets on screen, this can add up to quite a bit of pointage.
If a player chooses to continue a game once all of their lives and their credit have been lost, the score will also reset. So coming to grips with Gunbird 2's intense fire patterns and maximizing the bonus element to the game on a single credit definitely adds replay to the game on the whole.
Of course, Gunbird 2 for Nintendo Switch does not feature an online leaderboard, so players looking to show off their scores will have to do so by way of the Switch's screen capture button and social network upload. As far as Gunbird 2's presentation goes, the Nintendo Switch version is solid, but not mind-blowing.
Visually, Gunbird 2 is sharp, well-animated, and does a good job of letting players know what is a hazard and what is not. The backgrounds are quite busy compared to the original Gunbird, complete with all kinds of nuanced detail throughout. Gunbird 2 also features larger, more detailed enemy sprites that afford quite a bit of detail, especially when it comes to the bosses.
As is the case with the first Gunbird, the characters in Gunbird 2 all sport a classic 90s anime design. This time around, they are presented with a clean, high-quality marker-style color scheme rather than pixel art. Meanwhile, in-game, enemy and player elements are well-defined and enemy shots are clear to see.
On the sound front, though, things are a little less impressive. Most of the main tracks in the game sound very similar to one another since each uses the same sound sets. It's pretty neat to hear the theme from the animated intro in the original Gunbird remixed into the actual game, though.
But there is one area in which Gunbird 2 on Nintendo Switch falters. The bosses do not have voice parts and intermissions like in the original Gunbird. Granted, the Sega Dreamcast version of Gunbird 2 in North America did not have VO either. But the Japanese one did, and it was even voiced by the same cast who voiced the Durandal Gang, as was found in Tatsunoko's Yatterman. From what we can tell, only the Japanese Dreamcast version sports these VO segments, which is a shame since they're pretty well delivered.
It should also be mentioned that Morrigan of Darkstalkers is not present in this version. She was added as a bonus character part of Capcom publishing the Dreamcast version of the game. Capcom had nothing to do with the arcade version of the game, which was also what was represented in the PlayStation 2 version as well, making the Dreamcast versions unique in this respect.
As with the other 4 Nintendo Switch titles, Gunbird 2 has all of the amenities that we've come to expect. High-quality art on each player's side of the screen, clear, easy-to-navigate UI, virtual manuals, and a ton of options for lives, credits, extend scores, and of course, full Tate support for vertical gameplay at home or on the go.
So how does Gunbird 2 on Nintendo Switch stack up? Let's take a look.
The control in Gunbird 2 for Nintendo Switch is some of the sharpest we've seen yet in this series of games.
Playing through the dock will require a monitor with very low latency to avoid the fastest bullets, though.
Gunbird 2 is no slouch when it comes to its challenge. Get ready to play like a baby.
It's also more than 1cc'able without resorting to the lowest difficulty.
With 2 loops and 6 character story arcs, there's quite a bit to Gunbird 2's length.
The mix and match 2-character single-player story mode adds even more replay for solo players, as does a robust scoring system.
The visuals here are crisp and well-defined with exceptional backgrounds and cool bosses.
There is the odd artifact around pre-rendered sprites here and there.
The sound in Gunbird 2 for Nintendo Switch is pretty high-quality stuff, but a lot of pieces sound very similar to one another.
The lack of voice story scenes is a bit jarring, though only the Japanese Sega Dreamcast version actually sports this feature.
Gunbird 2 features an excellent set of features that borrows from the success of previous Saikyo titles while incorporating new ones that paved the way for other future titles like Strikers 1945-3.
But Gunbird 2 for Nintendo Switch in specific has the awesome ability to play 2-player scenarios without the need for a second player, something that we think more games of this type should factor in.
At just $8, Gunbird 2 for Nintendo Switch is a steal given the amount of gameplay and features it sports.
This is one that Saikyo fans aren't going to want to miss.
Gunbird 2 for Nintendo Switch is definitely one of the best shooters you'll find on the platform. It's one that delivers the goods regardless of better versions like the Japanese Dreamcast release. The Switch version's price definitely makes up for its shortcomings though, and it gets a 4.5 out of 5. You can get a copy of Gunbird 2 for Nintendo Switch for about $8 on the Nintendo eShop today. You know, there aren't a lot of Saikyo shooting games left that will be able to be brought over like this. Strikers 1945-3 and Space Bomber could be the last 2 we see.
Well, that's kinda sad.
Space Bomber looks like it'd be a lot of fun though. It's basically the Saikyo take on the Space Invaders or Galaga formula and it looks off the wall crazy.
That's galactic dancing?